Hi, I'm Jim Ward of the Middle Country Public Library, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 53 in our History Bites series. Today we will discuss the life of St. Patrick, who is annually honored with the celebration of St. Patrick's Day on March 17th. The man who would come to be known as St. Patrick, Apostle of Ireland, was born in Britain around 386 AD. Much of his life is unknown to historians and can't be verified, though some sources have listed his birth name as Maewyn Sacat, with the name Patrick later taken on during his religious journeys or ordainment. His father, Calphurnius, was a deacon from a Roman family of high social standing. It has been suggested that he probably took on the role because of tax incentives, and there is no evidence that Patrick came from a particularly religious family. Patrick's mother, Conchessa, was a close relative of the great patron saint Martin of Tours. Patrick's grandfather, Pontius, was also a member of the clergy. Patrick himself was not raised with a strong emphasis on religion, and education was not particularly stressed during his childhood either. Later in life, this would become a source of embarrassment for the spiritual icon, who would write in his Confessio, "I blush and fear exceedingly to reveal my lack of education." When Patrick was 16 years old, he was captured by Irish pirates. They brought him to Ireland, where he was sold into slavery in Dalriada. There his job was to tend sheep. Patrick's master, Milchu, was a high priest of Druidism, a pagan sect that held major religious influence over the country at the time. Patrick came to view his enslavement as God's test of his faith. Lonely and afraid, he turned to his religion for solace, becoming a devout Christian. In a vision, he saw the children of pagan Ireland reaching out their hands to him and grew increasingly determined to convert the Irish to Christianity. To escape, Patrick walked nearly 200 miles from County Mayo, where it is believed he was held, to the Irish coast. After escaping to Britain, Patrick reported that he experienced a second revelation, an angel in a dream telling him to return to Ireland as a missionary. Soon after, Patrick began religious training, a course of study that lasted more than 15 years. After his ordination as a priest, he was sent to Ireland with a dual mission: to minister to Christians already living in Ireland and to begin to convert the Irish. Upon his arrival in Ireland, Patrick was initially met with resistance, but managed to spread Christian teachings far and wide, along with other missionaries, through preaching, writing, and performing countless baptisms. Recognizing the history of spiritual practices already in place, nature-oriented pagan rituals were also incorporated into church practices. It is believed that Patrick may have introduced the Celtic Cross, which combined a native sun-worshipping symbology with that of the Christian cross. Throughout his missionary work, Patrick supported church officials, created councils, founded monasteries, and organized Ireland into dioceses. He may be known as the patron saint of Ireland, but Patrick was never actually canonized by the Catholic Church. This is simply due to the era he lived in. During the first millennium, there was no formal canonization process in the Catholic Church. After becoming a priest and helping to spread Christianity throughout Ireland, Patrick was likely proclaimed a saint by popular acclaim. St. Patrick died around 461 AD in Saul, Ireland, and is said to have been buried in the nearby town of Downpatrick, County Down. St. Patrick is recognized as the patron saint of Ireland, and his writings, noted for their humble voice, include the autobiographical Confessio and letter to Coroticus. St. Patrick is annually honored with the celebration of St. Patrick's Day on March 17th, which some cite as the date of his death, which falls during the Christian season of Lent. For more than 1,000 years, the Irish have observed St. Patrick's Day as a religious holiday. Since around the 9th or 10th century, people in Ireland have been observing the Roman Catholic feast day of St. Patrick on March 17th. The first St. Patrick's Day parade took place not in Ireland, but in America. Records show that a St. Patrick's Day parade was held on March 17, 1601, in a Spanish colony in what is now St. Augustine, Florida. The parade and a St. Patrick's Day celebration a year earlier were organized by the Spanish colony's Irish vicar, Ricardo Arter. More than a century later, Homesick Irish soldiers serving in the English military marched in New York City on March 17, 1772, to honor the Irish patron saint. Enthusiasm for the St. Patrick's Day parades in New York City, Boston, and other early American cities only grew from there. Over the years, Irish patriotism among American immigrants flourished, prompting the rise of so-called Irish aid societies like the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick and the Hibernian Society. Each group would hold annual parades featuring bagpipes, which actually first became popular in the Scottish and British armies, and drums. In 1848, several New York Irish aid societies decided to unite their parades to form one official New York City St. Patrick's Day parade. Today, that parade is the world's oldest civilian parade and the largest in the United States, with over 150,000 participants. Each year, nearly 3 million people line the 1.5-mile parade route to watch the procession, which takes more than 5 hours. Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Savannah also celebrate the day with parades involving between 10,000 and 20,000 participants each. We wear a shamrock on St. Patrick's Day because legend says St. Patrick used its 3 leaves to explain the Holy Trinity in his teachings. The truth of the St. Patrick legend, however, is in question, as there is no direct record that the saint actually used the shamrock as a teaching tool. Shamrocks are also the national flower and emblem of Ireland. Since 1962, Chicago has colored its river green to mark the holiday. Although blue was the color traditionally associated with St. Patrick, green is now commonly connected with the day. Irish and non-Irish alike commonly participate in the wearing of the green, sporting an item of green clothing or a shamrock in the lapel. Corned beef and cabbage are associated with the holiday, and even beer is sometimes dyed green to celebrate the day. I'd like to thank you all for joining us for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, click like, and if you watched on YouTube, hit subscribe. Thanks so much, and happy St. Patrick's Day!